Welcome to episode 18 of the Willpower Podcast. My guest today is Dani Smith. Dani owns a floral design company here in Austin, and she also leads events for Full Circle Social Club here in Austin. Dani is a super cool and super interesting person with quite the backstory. In this conversation, we talk a lot about community and all of the aspects of it. Enjoy. What is the importance of community?
The importance of community. I think we're designed for it as humans. I think it's a natural, innate desire that we have. Sort of when I think back to like more primitive, primal times where we had like villages and like genuinely relied on each other. Different members of the community had different skills, and we all needed each other in order to accomplish the things that needed to be accomplished as a group. And I think that's still embedded in our DNA. And today, with the way society is designed, technology, the digital world, all kinds of things, we have a lot of different ways that we can find community, and also a lot of ways to avoid community. And so I think the importance of it is really being human and being connected to others, because when we are connected to others, you know, we're really all kind of a mirror for each other, and that's where we learn about ourselves and about other people and about what we like and what we don't like and what we want and what we don't want and what we need and what we don't need. And that's where we get the feedback loop that allows us to get necessary information in order to create the life that we want. So we're not meant to live in this silo of our own mind. And in America, we're in a very individualistic society. And so I think community is even more important now. And I've seen a spike in desire for community post-COVID, when we were all kind of like forced into some level of isolation, where whether you have thought about it and really recognize it, there's some deep understanding of the value of like, I just want to be out doing things in the world with other people. That feels important. And I think it is, because it is what allows us to have that connection. And that's something that we need to be like happy and to be whole as humans.
Yeah, I might not get this analogy right, but I've heard something about like the internet, using that as a place for connection is like putting a blanket over like a hole in the ground. It's like it puts the problem away, because you're like, you can kind of scratch that itch of like, okay, I'm seeing other people. My brain kind of thinks I'm interacting with them, and it feels good enough. But you do really miss out on like those deeper aspects of connection and community.
Yeah, I actually have a pretty positive outlook on the internet and social media and like all of those kinds of things. I think that it's a really useful tool, but like any tool, we have to use it well. So if think of a toolbox. If you're trying to accomplish a task and that task needs a hammer, and you get like a drill, you're not going to be able to accomplish the task as efficiently, if at all. And so I think when we can view social media like a tool, it's a really helpful tool for connection and community, but it has its limitations. And in-person connection, being with another person in the same space, is important, because there's a whole nother level of an energetic exchange, of body language that does so much of the talking, of eye contact, that is a component of that connection that you don't really get on the internet. And so I'm pro internet for connection, but I'm pro internet as a tool to facilitate more in-person connection.
Right. Okay, I like that. It's a way to facilitate. It isn't like the place to connect, though.
Right. I mean, you can connect with people. I have like internet friends. I have people that I've like met because we met each other in the DMs, or like someone, said, "Oh, you should meet this person," or whatever. But eventually when that connection gets to a certain critical point, typically it's natural to make the effort to then meet in person to solidify the connection. So yeah, I think you can create connections on the internet, but I think you solidify connections, and connections become more real when you're able to meet in person.
Right. And then looking at like, to have a good life, you wouldn't want to have you don't want to use that one tool for everything. You don't want all of your connection to go on over the internet and then you're just sitting alone all the time on your computer or on your phone.
That's like a fear I have about the future world, is that we're going to be so reliant on the digital world that we're going to not have to leave our house. Like I grew up in I'm a 90s baby. I grew up in the early 2000s, like watching DCOMs, like Disney Channel original movies. And I think back to like Smart House and Phil of the Future and those kind of shows that were like joking about how the world's going to be. And then it's like actively happening right now. And like, I don't even have children yet. That's something that I desire, but I'm like mind boggled at the things that I'm probably going to have to navigate with my children and technology, of like, no, you have to go outside and touch grass. Like that's an important part of being a kid. You can't just be on the screen all the time. And you need to play sports and like do all of these things that were like so pivotal and developmental for me. I think I'm really fortunate to be born when I was, because I didn't have like a screen and a smartphone in my face until like late middle school. And so I now see the effect of kids that have like literally never existed without a screen. And it shows, it's an obvious impact that it has on like the development of the human brain and social skills and verbal skills and problem solving skills and connection. Connection is a skill. Being able to connect with another person is a skill that you can improve. That's another thing that I think is important that I've seen, is that if you feel like you're not good at it, some people maybe go to like the introvert extrovert dichotomy, but it's more nuanced than that, I think. It's a skill. It's something you can get better at. So I think, again, technology can be an asset and a tool when used properly, and it, like anything, can be harmful if used improperly or too much.
Yeah, that is I think about this sometimes too, with like how do you raise a child in the world of like, I don't know. I think there are clearly wrong ways to do it. I had my mom was like a screen time mom. It was like you get 30 minutes of screen time a day, and it was the worst. I hated it so much. But then when I think about it, I'm like, okay, but I feel like I would probably do something similar at this point.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to be, I don't know what kind of a parent I'm going to be because I'm not in that situation yet, but I have a feeling that I'm going to be pretty rigid with the rules around technology, just because I want my kids to be really good at being a human. And so I think it's just going to be a thing where they're probably like upset that their friends can do things that I won't let them do. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of those things now. I'm curious, do you see a way of like teaching that inherent value beneath the kind of enforcement?
Yeah. I think that children value what their parents value until they get to a certain age, when they then want to have their own values, but they don't know what that is or really how to navigate deciding that. So the pendulum swings all the way the other way. Right. And so what I think is this and again, I'm like postulating here about how I'm going to show up in the future as a parent. And like, I have such mad respect for all parents because I just know like everything I've done in life, but then this is going to be like the most beautiful and probably the hardest one of having children. When and if I'm blessed enough to be able to do that. And so I think it's about like displaying the values yourself. Like I think kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They see and sense and understand and can pick up on the energy and don't need to be like specifically told. Like, I'm not going to sit my 3-year-old down and be like, hey, these are your core values, but I'm going to live mine. And that's going to influence how I parent my children and the decisions that I make and the things that we do together and the way that we do those things. And they're going to pick up on that. Oh, like mom and dad really value being outside. Mom and dad really value no phones at the table. Mom and dad really value time with each other. And like, I have to hang out with a babysitter once a week because my mom and dad have a date night. My mom and dad really value community. There's always people at our house. There's always friends over. They're always doing things, like those are going to be the things that they subconsciously realize until they consciously realize. And then they get to the age where they get to make their own decisions. And that's where I think parenting gets tricky because you have to let them. Like I had parents that with the best intentions wanted to make all my decisions for me because they were like, we're your parents, we know better. And I, in my like inherent rebellion, was like, no, you don't. I'm going to do the exact opposite of what you say with attitude. And so I did. And I did. I was like, you want me to do this? I'm going all the way over here. And at the same time, I can look back and see like, I really just wanted their love and approval. So I wanted to like be my own person, but I also wanted them to love and approve of me. And I think that's something we have to remember as well. Is like kids want their love of their parents. And so I think the important thing is, okay, display the values and then also leave space for them to be their own human. Show them that they have room to play with developing their own ideas, dislikes, likes, interests, values, preferences. Like give them that space. And ideally you've earned a relationship where they come to you for your input. And it's like, hey mom, I really like playing piano, but I feel like I really want to get good at water polo. And like, I don't feel like I have time for both. Like, what do you think I should do? And that's a conversation that we get to have versus like, if you're not the best football player, then mom and dad are like low key kind of disappointed in you and you can tell. I think that's kind of the balance. Is like show them the values and then and show them they have the space to become their own human, and you're just going to support them and help them navigate that. Because values aren't outcome based. Values are like navigation. How you get to an outcome is based on your values. So that's what I think we can instill with kids. And I also don't know why I'm talking about this because I'm not a mom. And again, I have so much respect for moms, but the switch did flip for me around like 28 years old, where I went from being like, I would rather pet dogs than hold babies, to then being like, oh, I want to be pregnant. And not like with a sense of urgency, but just like, for me personally, I can't think of a cooler thing I get to be a woman in this life. And I can't think of a cooler thing that I could do with my time than create life inside of my body. So, and I want to leave a legacy in the form of a human. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like you said, we're both not parents,
right?
Just speculating, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts on punishment? It kind of is interwoven in that, but
yeah. So I think discipline is mega important. So you use the word punishment, and I'm going to interchange it for the word discipline.
Okay.
Because I think punishment implies shame or guilt. Like when you punish someone, like they did something wrong, and the point of the punishment is that they know that. Mm-hmm. And I do think that I will, at some level, have to punish I think they will do wrong things, and I will have to help navigate right from wrong, and like punishment will be a thing. For me, it will never be corporal. Like I'm super hard no on physical punishment. And I think I'm wanting to interchange it for the word discipline, because what I have learned pretty recently in my life is that discipline is actually freedom. And that when you're able to be disciplined, when you're able to delay gratification, when you're able to not do what you immediately want in order to work towards what you actually want, life gets a lot better. And so I think discipline is an opportunity to teach your kids that. And I feel like I had to learn that over and over and over and over and over again and the hard way, because I wasn't disciplined very well. And so I could always, in my own like creative, charismatic, and rebellious nature, find a loophole or just sneak out of the house. And I did not, I was not like disciplined well, and not for a lack of trying. I think I made it pretty hard. But I think discipline is a super important element, and I have no idea how I'm going to navigate it. That's why I do think the most important choice that any human being makes in their life is their partner. Like, way more important than your job or where you live or all the other like factors that obviously significantly impact your life. Your partner is the one that affects your life the most, in my opinion, from what I've seen from my friends that do have partners or are married, and just from what I like believe and have seen throughout my whole life. So yeah, hopefully the idea is to have a partner that will help me to navigate that, and we'll get to have conversations about that. And when we have to do and say hard things to our children and it like actually breaks our heart a little bit, like I can go to my husband and like cry and be like, I can't believe I had to do that to him. And then my kid deals with it, and then we all figure it out. But I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's a hard one. It's so I guess another way to frame it is like negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
Because yes, punishment we don't need to use that word. But
yeah.
like just the idea of like your child does something that's wrong. Like there's like extremes. One extreme is like you are like the like hand of justice. Like you make the call. And then the other extreme would be like you kind of just let the world teach them.
Yeah, I'm a little more let the world teach them with like boundaries in place for like safety and my and whoever my future husband will be, is like our agreed upon value system for our children. But like I'm a pretty big fan of the school of life. And so I think when it comes to like discipline and punishment and all that kind of stuff, like it's really just about, it's about teaching the understanding of consequences, which is like a core principle that everyone comes to understand in their own way at some point of, cause and effect and consequences for actions. And you understand that or you don't. And then your life unfolds accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that's the way I see it, is like, again, not a parent. The way I would
I know, why are we talking about parenting?
The way I would hope to be is that I like am helping my child navigate and like understand what happened and why it happened the way it did based on their actions.
Yes, that's what so I think a lot of times we act out like adults are just large children with much more responsibility and risk and freedom. Like the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody has it figured out. There's no secret formula. And so, yeah, I think it's about understanding how to feel your feelings well, right? Because essentially, I'm going to see where this goes if I like it as I'm saying it. But when you have negative consequences in life, it's probably because you did something based on a feeling you had that was difficult or uncomfortable. And then you like were trying to suppress or like soothe that feeling. And so you do a thing and then you get negative consequences, right? And it's not so binary as like you have bad feelings, you do bad thing. You have good feelings, you do good thing. But I feel like a lot of times those negative consequences come from a response to uncomfortable or unwanted feelings. And when you learn how to navigate your feelings, then you're able to respond rather than react. And that was a really powerful tool that I learned, was that I am responsible for my my second thought and my first action. My first thought I'm not responsible for. My first thought just happens. I don't hold myself responsible for that. I've learned how to take the role of the observer and be like, whoa, I just wanted to like, you know, like I go for an obvious example of like when you're driving and you just want to like flick someone on the forehead because they just do something. So it's like, how are you allowed to have a license, you know? But like your first thought is that primal reptile reaction of your brain of just like fight, flight, freeze, anger, like those top level emotions, right? And then your second thought can be like, whoa, that was a super intense and unbalanced reaction to that. I might need to take a couple breaths. Or, oh yeah, I just got in a fight with my friend, so I'm clearly feeling agitated and I'm taking it out on this person. Your second thought is where like your more evolved part of your brain starts to click on. And then when you can have that second thought and you train yourself to do that well and really get into like, why did I just have that first thought? And then you let your first action be based on your second thought. So my first action when I'm feeling like, I use the acronym HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, is usually when I'm most likely to act out. And so whenever I have a first thought that's maybe a little bit more spicy or chaotic, and my second thought is, okay, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Have I done the things that I know, like put my brain chemistry in a good spot today? If no, go do those things as much as is possible. If those things aren't possible, can I breathe for a second? Breath work has been life-changing for me. And I know we took a couple breaths at the beginning of this conversation, which I really appreciated, but like just learning that like, no matter how much money I have, where in the world I am, who I'm with, what I'm wearing, like any circumstances, I have my breath. And when I'm able to tap into that, I can get my nervous system to a level where I can think like the evolved human that I am and not the like animal amygdala brain that I have. And so then I can take a first action that's a lot more thoughtful and a lot more of a response to the stimuli that I'm getting from the world that is more aligned with my values and who I want to show up as. It's just a lot more thoughtful instead of a reaction, which is just like that more, I don't know, first level response.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more like distance you can put between yourself and that first reaction,
the
better off you'll be.
Pausing is one of the greatest skills that I practice, is pausing.
Yeah.
Just doing nothing is actually a skill. I don't know if you knew that, but I did not know that.
Like those impulses going and like
yeah.
You just want to.
And I'm a pretty impulsive person. Mm-hmm. And it's part of my power is like, I am super, whatever the opposite of, like, what do they call it when you can't make a decision?
Indecision?
Yeah. Like indecisive. I'm decisive. I'm very quick to the draw. I'm like not risk averse and I can just get things done. And it's one of my superpowers, but it also, because I know I lean more that way, I have to like bake in the thoughtfulness and the like, hold on, Dani, take a second to think and make sure that my gut feeling and my gut reaction and my gut thought is accurate. Because it's not always. A lot of times it is. And I've learned to build a trusting relationship with my intuition, but it's not 10 out of 10. And so pausing, especially when agitated or doubtful, is a really helpful skill that I've learned to help me navigate what's in here coming out here the correct way. Or the way that I want it to. There's not really a correct way, but
yeah, I get so frustrated when I'm in a rush or if I'm late to something and someone is driving below the speed limit. Like I get so I have that like immediate reaction, and then sometimes I catch it and I'm like, okay, relax, like they don't know that you're in a rush.
No,
you're not like more important than them.
Yeah, they have no idea. I am a late person historically and always. I would like to point out I was on time. Right on time today.
Very on time.
Thank you. Just that so many past versions of me need to know that I was on time today. But I'm historically a late person, and the anxiety of the rushing is like something that I came to enjoy in a like weird self-preservation-y way.
There's something about like you don't like everything else is gone. You don't think about anything else.
Yeah, you're like in the zone because you have no other choice. And I've like learned how to get in the zone by choice. And it's so much smoother. It's so much nicer without that like shot of adrenaline that goes and cortisol that goes through my brain when I'm rushing. And it definitely still happens. I have not like cured myself from being late, but it went from being like egregiously late and having people call me out on it of like, this is the worst, to like 5 to 10 minutes typically. Okay. Sometimes with like social things, I'll push it to maybe like the 15 and the 20 because it's social. But I really do try to make an effort to be on time, because to me, when it was framed to me that like, it's about respect. Like, do you respect the other person's time enough to be on time for them? And I was like, oh yeah, that's real. And I've also been on the receiving end where like I make plans with someone and then they're 15 minutes late. And like, depending on where I'm at, I'm like, dang, I really could have used those 15 minutes. Or I'm like, cool, opportunity to check my email or, you know, take a moment to breathe and chill. It just kind of depends. But yeah, that adrenaline of rushing and the anxiety of that is definitely how I like existed for the first 3 years of my early 20s when I got out of college.
Yeah. So back to community. Have you had the experience of not having community in your life?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good transition because it was those first couple of years when I first got out of college that I did not have any community. And this is a long winding story, and I am a loquacious person. I can talk a lot. And so I'll try to like hit the main points, but I went to the University of Texas, majored in broadcast journalism, wanted to be a news anchor. There's a couple paths for that. One is to like move to a small town in Texas and you can like be on camera as an anchor in like Brownsville, Texas at like 23 years old. It's wild. And I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to move. I grew up in a suburb of Dallas called Plano, Texas, and it was a big suburban city. And then I came to Austin and was at like a big college, and I just like the idea of small town just was not my vibe. The older I get, the more I'm like, I do think I want a farm. So like might end up like on the outskirts, but I took the exact opposite route and I moved to New York City sight unseen at 22 years old. And I got an intern. I was accepted as one of 10 to an internship with Bloomberg News. And I got the call like 10 days before I graduated college. And they were like, you got it. And I was like, actually, I haven't thought about this in a long time. I was scheduled to have a phone interview with a company here in Austin to work in like digital media or something. And I got a call and I thought it was that company calling me, and it was Bloomberg calling me being like, you got the job. And then I was on the phone with them, flabbergasted, like completely shocked that I got this, because I remember the first day of the internship, they were like, the acceptance rate for this internship is more exclusive than the acceptance rate to Harvard. And I was like, if that isn't a journalist spinning a piece of data, I don't know what is, but it's a very like prestigious program. So I was shocked that I got it and late to the other interview. And I literally hung up the phone, called the other people back because they had called me while I was on the phone with Bloomberg and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I got a flat tire or something. Like, did the interview, like didn't even like fully accept that had just happened, did the interview so that I could like have that in my back pocket. And then later went back to them and was like, hey, I'm moving to New York. I got an internship with Bloomberg. So I moved to New York and had no community. It was incredibly gnarly. When I first moved there, I moved to West Harlem, which is like kind of where Columbia is. It's like a little bit north. So first of all, I had lived in Texas my whole life and I had literally never been to New York. So I did not understand the scope of an 8-mile long, 2-mile wide island that is Manhattan. It was like mind-boggling to me. I remember one time I walked from my apartment, which was like probably like 25 blocks north of Central Park. And I walked all the way through Central Park into like the East Village. So just like this diagonal line across Manhattan, and like made it from end to end. Like I like saw the East River, and then I like saw water on the other side, and was just the Hudson. So the East River and the Hudson like within like 3.5 hours. And I was just like, what? The scope was weird for me. But with this internship, I did an internship from Labor Day until like holiday break, essentially. And I had to be there at 7 a.m., which was gnarly because I had to navigate the public transportation situation and the subways and the changeovers and talk about being late. Whew, that was not a good look, but it happened. And so I did the internship and then got a year-long contract with Bloomberg Television because I'd expressed my desire to be an anchor and to work in the television department. And when I got put in television, I was on the 5 a.m. show. It was called Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Francine Lacroix. They were the anchors, and incredible people to get to learn from, honestly. The fact that I had like proximity to those two humans was next level, and also like extremely intense pressure. And yeah, I went from like a big fish in a big pond to like a big fish in the ocean where there were like sharks. And I was like, oh, no one cares that I like have a big smile and like a good personality and like want to learn, and like no one cares. Like all of us are here and we're all trying to do the thing. And so the show that I got put on was at 5 a.m. So I had to be in the office at 3:30 a.m. So I couldn't go out and socialize with people my age at night. It was a non-option. And I was like, I would get off of work at like noon. I would go in at 3:30 and get off at noon in the middle of the day when everybody else was at work. So I didn't have anybody to hang out with. There was no like social activities and events going on in the middle of the day to meet people, to have friends. And then by the time that they were all getting off of work and going out to socialize, I needed to start winding down for bed because I had to wake up at 2:30 in the morning, 2:45 in the morning. And it was incredibly lonely. It was a time that was void of community. And I had a couple like good friends here and there, you know, they were friends of friends or people that I had gone to school with or kind of knew from this or that. And you like, everybody's in the same boat when they move to New York. So there's kind of this understanding that like, if you've ever talked to anyone I know, they're going to like put us in touch and we're going to like randomly go to lunch and see what happens. And some of those things end up being one weird lunch and some people end up being your best friends. And so I had friends. I've always been good at making friends, and I've never had a part of my life where I had like no friends. But that 3-year period in New York was the most lonely and the most void of community. And so even though I had friends and was invited to things sometimes and stuff was happening and I knew people, I didn't have community in the sense that I had people that I could count on emotionally, and I didn't have people that I could count on seeing regularly. There was no like rhythm. I think that's part of community, is that there's like a rhythm to community. It's like, we're going to meet every Monday. We're going to meet every Wednesday night. We're going to meet on Sunday mornings. Like there's a expectation that I'm going to see these people, and it makes the logistical work of getting together, it solves that for you. And you just show up to the community and you see the people and you connect. And I just didn't have any of that going on. And nobody at work wanted to be my friend. I mean, I have never worked in a harsher environment than the Bloomberg newsroom. And I get it. It's a stressful job. You're in live television. It's a global network. You're coordinating across time zones. You're coordinating news that is immediate. So there's no room for bullshit. But there was also no room made for humanity and feelings and kindness and like, wow, this kid is clearly in over her head. Someone needs to take her under her wing. That did not happen. So I just got more and more discouraged and sad. And spoiler alert, I'm not a news anchor. So I ended up navigating out of that. But that was definitely a time where I was the most alone that I've ever been. And it was really sad.
Yeah. So what are you doing today to create community, both for yourself and then for other people?
Well, this is like such an Austin answer that I'm just going to like do a really intense eye roll for everyone. So then we can just move forward with the conversation. But for me, it's been fitness, and fitness is what I'm doing. And I fell into it kind of professionally because I was doing it for myself. But I have to give a huge shout out to Danielle Gertner and Warrior Women and everyone on the leadership team there, Jen, JK, all the people that have built that community, because I went to my first workout there in May of 2023. So like a year and a half ago about. And I went there because I had started my own floral design business, and I had met them at my first event I ever did. And they were like, our theme of the month for May is growth. So will you do a workout for our community? And I was like, or not a workout, I'm sorry. They said, will you do a make your own bouquet making workshop for our community? And I was like, I would absolutely love to do that. That sounds awesome. And so they invited me to that. And well, because I was doing the workshop, they invited me to a workout. That's how that happened. And so I went to the workout, and I went up to Danielle, who's the founder, afterwards. And I was like, yo, this is amazing. Like, I was an athlete in high school. I played soccer, and I actually played like all the sports until they were like, you need to choose one. And then I played soccer. I didn't end up playing in college because I was like burnt out and wanted to just like have the college experience. And when I was in New York and super depressed, I was like clinically depressed. Like, I ended that on saying like I was sad. I was unwell, and we can get into that if you want. But I definitely wasn't working out. I can tell you that. And so I mean, I did work out. I had a soul cycle phase in New York. But what I'm doing now is we got really committed to my fitness journey through Warrior Women. I went up to Danielle after, and I was like, I love this, but I'm like not in a financial position to commit to a membership right now. And she was like, cool, we do scholarships. Done. Come back next week. And I went every Thursday from May until August last summer, and I dropped 25 pounds, and I made a whole new group of friends, and I felt the empowerment of the community that they have built there, which is an all women community, but it was a really safe place to be like unapologetically strong. You know, like I feel like as a woman going into a weight room, you're like either being like eyed or you're being like you're comparing yourself to. So you're like, okay, well, that guy's grabbing like a 50-pound weight to do his bicep curls, and here I am with like a 20 or a 35. You're either playing that game or you're like, that dude's looking at my ass the whole time that I'm doing this workout. And so it just like inhibits your ability to like work out freely. And in this all female environment where they're also teaching proper form, and they're also like empowering you to do a little more, knowing that you have these coaches that are watching and like going to make sure that you don't hurt yourself and that you're doing it right. And I just like full send, and I lost weight, and that was really cool because I wasn't really trying to lose weight, but I had some weight to lose. I had some like depression fluff, and I all of a sudden just like the mind body connection of like, oh, if I continually show up, I'm going to get results. That was like the most potent experience that I had of that was the Warrior Women community and physical fitness. And I think physical fitness in general is just such a perfect and effective metaphor for discipline, commitment, hard work, and the growth that comes with discomfort, which are like all of the buzzwords that you hear about how to become great in any context. And I think working out is the best metaphor for it, because you have to show up when you don't want to. You have to show up consistently if you want to see results. You have to lift weights that are heavier than the weights you lifted yesterday if you want to grow. You have to be conscious about the food you put in your body if you want what you're doing in the gym to be effective. So all of a sudden it becomes this like lifestyle instead of just I'm going to the gym one time. And when that transition happens, it's this really good metaphor for how to like design growth in any other area of your life. And the fact that you can see it on your body, the fact that I could wear different clothes and be stoked about being in a swimsuit when I was usually trying to cover up, and just love myself in a different way was really empowering. And so that led me to what I'm doing now to build community, which is called Full Circle Events. And I met one of the founders of Full Circle Events, two of the founders actually, at an event in May when I was like modeling and working a booth for a brand called Sober. And I was working for that brand and just there at this event. And I met Bobby and Emma, shouts out to my favorite humans. And they were like, you're awesome. And I was like, y'all are awesome. And then we went our separate ways. They like lived in Denver, and actually Emma's nomadic. And so Emma and her boyfriend Sean. Sean is the founder of the company, and like they're nomadic, and Bobby's in Denver. And anyway, I was like, we'll never see them again. That was fun. I like did a little thing for their video and was like, make health social. And then they called me the next week and were like, can we talk? And I was like, sure. About what? And they were like, we need someone in Austin, and we're pretty sure that it's you. Like, are you available? And I was like, kind of no. Like, I have 2 of my own businesses that I'm building right now, and I'm super busy and committed, and I love what y'all are doing, but like, I'm not sure, we need to talk about it. And so they were like, let us just tell you about the details. So then they basically just like sold me and talked me into it. It wasn't too tricky because they're essentially creating a social wellness club, which I think is a larger trend that we're going to see in like society at large. You can already see it a little bit in gyms kind of stretching their arms out into having non-gym related activities for their members. And I really think that the social wellness club is just going to be kind of the inverse of that, where we're like an activity based group of people with similar values or aspiring to similar things. And then we're also probably going to like do healthy things together. So you're going to have like both and you're probably going to have those things working together, which is a lot of what Full Circle is doing, right? So we're saying, okay, if the common ground we can stand on together is that we are coming to a workout and we prioritize physical fitness in our life, then this assumption can be made that you're like into personal growth, that you're at some level healthy. If you're healthy mentally, or if you're healthy physically, it increases the chance that you're healthy mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. And so you kind of have this common ground of like, movement is a priority in my life generally. And then you start from there by having a movement workout based event. And then you have connection. You have the opportunity to build community. And that's really what my intention and my heart behind building Full Circle in Austin is to have the theme or the feeling that people have be play and playful, so that someone who's not super into fitness isn't intimidated to come to one of our events because it's not a High Rocks or a CrossFit Games. Like, that's not what's happening. But someone who's really committed to their fitness journey can come and see the value of connecting with other like-minded individuals on their like off day or whatever that is, right? And maybe that's not the day that they're working out the hardest because they've got that program and protocol all dialed in. So I'm trying to create that common ground where everyone can come and connect, and it can be a social space where, like I said, when you come to a Full Circle event, you're probably going to see those same people that always come to the Full Circle events. And so you're going to be able to hang out with them. And it might be someone where you meet a friend, you meet someone you can go to the gym with, you meet somebody that can be a business partner or trade services or help you with your business. Maybe you meet someone you want to ask on a date. I have an idea for like a workout based singles event that I want to do that I'm not going to say the name of because I think it's really good. I don't want anyone to take it, but it's really just letting movement and physical fitness be the common ground for community, which is what happened in my personal life. And then an opportunity found me to do it at scale, which has been really, really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is health and fitness to you now, outside of just community?
It's like, outside of the time that I spend with God, it's the most important thing for my daily health and wellness. It's the way that so there's this prayer called the Serenity Prayer, and it basically invites you to separate what you can control from what you can't control and to like know the difference. And working out and being healthy, and that is an all-encompassing statement. So yes, going to the gym and lifting weights, and like, I really personally, my whatever protocol looks like yoga and weightlifting mostly, and I'm just getting enticed into all these run clubs. My friend Sam started a run club, so I've been running, and then I've had crushes on a couple of guys who have been super into running, and so I'm like, I should try this running thing, and then I'm like, I hate this, but it's actually really good for you. And like so I don't know, I think it's just like, this is gonna sound like a weird thing to say it, but it's also probably gonna be a good segue into it, of like, there's kind of like a natural pharmacy in my brain of like drugs that I can use to like feel the way that I want to feel. And when I work out, when I eat well, when I intentionally breathe, when I pray and connect to my higher power, when I delay gratification and do the things that I say I'm going to do and earn my own self-respect, when I make positive financial decisions, when I make like all of that releases these chemicals in my brain that make me feel better. And I think that's what a lot of us are trying to do most of the time, is just like feel okay and feel better than okay. And so when you ask me like, what is health and fitness? It's the way that I feel okay and better than okay. It's the controllable thing I have to feel good. And so I milk it for all that it's worth.
How do you get over that hump of like, so there are plenty of activities, I'm sure you could imagine, that will give you an immediate spike.
Yeah.
How do you get over the hump of like, okay, I have to do the like more difficult thing, but I also know that this is going to be a more substantial and...
Yeah, so that's, I think, a practice thing. Like anything, you get better at things when you practice them. So when I was less disciplined and had less self-respect and was less fit, which are all connected, that hump was steeper. But now I've done enough things in my life that hump just feels like a hurdle that I know I can jump over. Like as soon as I see it, I'm like, I got that.
Right.
That I don't want, I still feel that I don't want to. Today, for example, I did not want to go to the gym. I went for 2 hours and I biked there because I was like, I'm going to use the bike there as the movement. First of all, I'm super sore because I've worked out every day for the past like 10 days straight because I'm hiking Mount Kilimanjaro and I'm like trying to like push my body to be ready for that. But I'm sore. Like my hips hurt, my calves hurt, like I hurt. So I was like, I'll warm up on the bike. And for some reason, bike riding also just like is like a one-way ticket to childlike joy for me. Like, I don't know. But like the month of July this summer, I went on a lot of bike rides and just like, it's a happy place for me. And so I was like, I'm going to bike to the gym. I'm going to get there and be warm. And then I'm going to, do what I want to do. And today that was kettlebells. And it's like, if you would have looked at a version of me 3 years ago and been like, do you know what a kettlebell is? Like, I would have been like, no, like a cowbell. Like I would not have known what that is. And today I was like, I just want to swing a kettlebell around. And that's what I did. And I had fun with it. And I also got in a really good workout. And then I had to bike home after doing a glute pump. And that was not the best decision because there are some hills on the way home. But yeah, I honestly forgot the question. But I don't know. It's just that controllable thing that makes me feel good. Yeah. Yeah.
And I liked when he said it's a hurdle that you can get over.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the thing I think
so it's practice. Yeah. It's like the more that I show myself that it's not as steep as I think it's going to be and that I'm more capable than I feel like I am in this moment, the more that I'm able to just get from that frozen fear into that empowered action of like, oh, I'm going to try. And like, that's how anything gets done, is messy action. Like when you realize that nobody actually like 100%, sure, there are people that are like, have like studied things and are specialized. And like, there are certain things that you need certifications for. Trust me, half the coaches in Austin don't have the certifications that they need, I'm sure. But I think that you get good with practice at going over the hurdle. And then the more you do that, the higher hurdles that you can go over more easily. And then eventually you find a hurdle that like knocks you flat on your ass and you're like, all right, how am I going to plan to get over that one? And then it becomes this game. Then it becomes this thing where you're like, I like getting over hurdles. I like doing hard things. I like challenging myself. I like getting out of my comfort zone. So now that I found this thing that's a little too high for me to get over, what do I have to do in order to make that jump? And then that becomes fun. And I'm kind of at that point where like, that's actually fun for me. So then I'm just kind of doing that all the time. And the things that used to be really hard are now really easy. And not all of them, some things are still hard, but a lot of things that used to be really, really difficult for me are like second nature now. just because I practiced, just because I continued to show up in discomfort and do it anyway until it wasn't uncomfortable anymore.
What are your favorite kettlebell exercises?
I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with a good kettlebell swing. Proper form. A lot of people don't do the correct form. I love a good kettlebell swing. There's something very powerful about that. The power comes from your legs, and you can kind of feel the kettlebell feel light in your hands, and there's something satisfying about that to me. I like the breathing technique of presses. It makes me like, or cleans. Sorry. It makes me feel like I'm working out. When I do the like I feel like I am in the gym right now. But I also like kettlebell flow a lot. And I'm trying to get a little bit more into that. Like today I was doing some figure eights through my legs into a lunge and just kind of like moving with the bell a little bit. And I have a friend, Curtis, who is a trainer at Squatch and also has become a dear friend. And he is like the king of flow. He actually has a business called Jump Theory and does jump rope. And like the man just like glides. He's like one with the rope. And so we started jumping rope together just like naturally at the gym. Then we did a jump rope event. We're actually going to do a series of them. So like there will be an opportunity to come jump with Curtis and I. But he taught me kettlebell flips as well. Have you ever flipped a kettlebell? Yeah. So he taught me kettlebell flips. And that was like a hyper fixation that I had for like a month and a half this summer, was doing kettlebell flips because it's so satisfying when you get it right to just have like the smoothness of like you actually fully flip the bell, catch it, and then go down through your legs again. And yeah, that's one of the best.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I do. I think I went to like one class with a friend a while ago, and the guy would like swing it around, just to like around your body.
Yeah.
And that's the only flow-ish thing I know.
Flowy thing.
But
yeah.
I like doing that as kind of like a in between sets. So I'm still moving, still keeping my heart rate up.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I use jump rope for that now. After Curtis reintroducing me to the jump rope, because I used to jump rope as a kid. Actually, my mom loves to jump rope. Super random. My mom's like super athletic. My mom and dad were both really athletic, which is like just kind of a culture that I grew up in of like, you're going to do sports. And I was like, cool. But she loved to jump rope, and we would do that like really playfully as kids. And then Curtis brought it back. And now that's how I like keep my heart rate up in a workout. Cause you can do it pretty passively, you know, you can like control the speed and control the intensity. But if I like need a break to catch my breath, instead of just sitting there and getting on my phone or whatever, I'll just like jump rope and set my timer for a minute and then take a couple breaths after that and keep going. Highly recommend.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about marijuana. So
my old friend.
What has been your experience with weed?
I was never good at smoking weed. Turns out you can be good at it and you can be bad at it. I thought I was good at it. I was really bad at it. As far back as high school, I had friends come to me and be like, maybe you shouldn't smoke. Like, you get really weird when you smoke. And I was like, whatever. And so I'll just skip a lot of like kind of funny, kind of like super sad stories that I have. But essentially that time that I spoke about when I lived in New York, at the time you could get, and I'm sure it's still true because marijuana is only getting more and more legal. It's everywhere. I could have it delivered to my apartment. Like a guy, the kind of guy that you would cast in the television show as like the weed delivery guy. He looked exactly like that every time. It was a different person. But there was a service where I could text and I could say how the quantity and the manner in which I would like to receive that weed. And then a guy on a bike with like camera, like a Pelican case on his bike would come in and open up the Pelican case and it was just full of weed. And he would deliver the weed and I would pay for it and he would go. And I was living in West Harlem with no friends, with no accountability, with savings from college. I've worked since I was 15 years old. So I had like a pretty fat savings account and, you know, like friends and family, like, you're going to New York, here's a little extra. Yeah. Right. And, was working and making money, not a lot. And I just had time. Like all I had was work. And then, like I said, I didn't have any friends. I wasn't working out. I met a man 13 days after I moved there when I was like wandering the city before my internship started. And we began a relationship that lasted the entire time that I lived in New York and was on and off. And that was my first love. And I'm like super grateful to him because it was a lovely experience. And it was also a decision that a 22-year-old version of myself made that I think was motivated a lot by this makes sense. And it will be easier if I go along with this person, because he kind of already had his life together in a lot of ways. And I just kind of like joined in on his life instead of like figuring out my own. So I had him. He was like I joke he was my emotional support human. People have more emotional support dogs. I had an emotional support human. And yeah, so he was at work. He worked normal hours. So he was at work. So I would get home and I would get high. And it started innocently enough, but I really wouldn't say that I was at a place where I had like an obvious problem with substances until New York. And a lot of that I owe to being pretty religious in college. I was in a community called Young Life, which is like a non-denominational but very evangelical Christian organization where they place young adults in high schools, and those adults like are those kids young life leaders. And like when I was in high school, I had a young life leader, and then when I got to college, I was placed as a young life leader in an Austin area high school, and I like led Bible studies and this group of girls that were in high school. And that is a whole different story, but what I'm trying to tell you about that and marijuana is it kept me out of trouble. Being religious kept me out of trouble because I wasn't exposed to people and parties and opportunities where drugs and alcohol were like even an option. Like we were going to Bible study and going to Chick-fil-A and going to swim with our one pieces and our shorts on. Like nothing was happening. And like in order to belong in that community, I had to behave in a certain way that did not include abuse of drugs and alcohol. So it like wasn't even an option available to me. And I'm so thankful to God for that. Like my religious journey, I wouldn't consider myself like religious now, but I was religious then. And now I'm very spiritual and I believe in God. And when I say God, I do mean Jesus. And I'm like totally comfortable saying that, but my understanding of Jesus is not limited to only Christianity. And so yeah, Christianity as a religion kept me out of trouble. Then I moved to New York, didn't have the church, didn't have Young Life, didn't have the leaders in the Bible study and the community around me to enforce that behavior that was necessary to belong. And I went off the rails. I convinced myself that it was my medicine in order to go to sleep and be hungry at the right times because my circadian rhythm was super off with this like 2:30, 2:45 a.m. alarm every morning and then getting back in the middle of the day and like being tired. Like the way you feel at 6 or 7 p.m. is like the way that I felt at noon. And so it was just all of it was disorienting, understandably. Most of the people that worked in that newsroom were abusing something. They weren't all abusing marijuana, but there was a lot of antidepressants going on. There was a lot of cocaine going on. There was a lot of coping happening. And I was young and did not have great coping skills. My coping skills up until this point had been like, pray about it. And like, that wasn't something I was doing anymore because I didn't need to belong. So I kind of just was like on my own, taking my best guess. And I got addicted to marijuana, like hardcore, fully psychologically. And like I've had withdrawals from marijuana and people are like, what? And I'm like, you don't want to see, but like there was a version of me that you could see that was like clearly withdrawing from something. It is not the same as withdrawing from alcohol or heroin or something more intense, but it's withdrawals and it's not fun and it's not pretty. Like it is a substance that when abused, like anything, honestly, has a negative impact on your body. And I went to a place in the mental unhealthiness that I was in where I became dependent on it in order to hit a baseline of being okay, which my baseline just became numb. I was feeling so many things and I didn't want to feel 99% of those things. And my brain is has a very fast processing speed. And the only way that I could get my mind to slow down and and find what I thought was peace was to get high. And now it wasn't peace. It was really just numbness, right? Like that's something that I learned is that like when you abuse substances, it might take away the bad, but it also takes away the good. Like it's not like a selective, like you can't like take a sip of something or take a hit of something and be like, I want you to take away this feeling. It just numbs you. And that's what happened is I enjoyed being numb more than I enjoyed feeling what I was feeling in my life. And when that happened, I became addicted to marijuana. And it wasn't until it was about a 5-year journey of like a binge and cold turkey and consequences and until I got sober in February of 2022. So about 2.5 years ago. And that was one of the most life-changing things that's ever happened for sure. Yeah.
What have you learned from in the past 2.5 years in that journey?
Wow. No one's just like straight up asked me that question in a long time or maybe at all. I've learned that I am so incredibly capable of having the life beyond my wildest dreams. And I've learned to believe in myself again and trust myself again and respect myself and love myself. And in doing that for and with myself, do that for other people genuinely. I've kind of learned how to like be a human. Like I was being a human before, but I was sick. I really was. And, you know, I'm someone who I consider myself in recovery, and like my little sister who I love so much and who loves me so much has a little bit more of a hesitation around like me being so open about it, because she's like, you know, when people hear words like recovery and addict, like they have assumptions and they have a reaction, and like you don't want everybody to put that on you. And I get that. I really do. She's coming from a place of love when she says that. But for me, I'm also like the potential upside of someone hearing my story and relating to what I have to say and being able to connect with me over that, or just hear that another person has that story and is on the other side of it and moving in the right direction and smiling and happy and living life to the full, is worth the potential that some person decides to take that information and judge me. That's theirs. That's not mine. That falls in the out of my control category. And so for me, it's just like I get to share my experience, my strength, my hope, my truth. And what comes of that is kind of up to what God wants to do with it. And my openness with it is giving God more opportunities to do something cool with it. So when I say that I'm in recovery, what I mean is that I'm committed to being the best version of myself every day. And the best version of me starts with being sober. That's what being in recovery means for me. And I think in a way, we're all in recovery from something. You know, like there's something that happened to all of us that hurt us in a way that significantly shaped who we are and how we navigate the world. And now we navigate the world recovering from that thing that happened. Mine just happens to be that my depression got so bad that I became dependent on a substance. And that's like a classic, you know, recovery thing. But I think we all have things that we're moving through and navigating around. And I'm like really proud to be in recovery and really proud of myself, because the last 2.5 years I've learned that like, I mean, I don't want to get like too intense on this podcast, but like I almost gave up on myself there, for real. Like it got dark enough to where like I did not want to be here anymore. And I talk about, you know, people think that weed is harmless, and it is. For most normal people who smoke weed, like a normal person, it's a pretty harmless and maybe even good thing. And I don't feel any type of way about marijuana. Like I don't have anything against it. I love it. That's part of the problem, is that I loved it too much. And, but I think the effect of that drug is that numbness that I was talking about. And I was so depressed and I got so numb that it was just it wasn't like this violent, like demonic, like I hate myself and I like it was just this slow drip of lack of care until there was nothing left. And I was like, really don't care if I'm here tomorrow. And I don't know that anybody else does. And I think like mom and dad would be bummed, but they'll like start a foundation and raise a bunch of money and like everybody will be better off. And I sat in that for like a long time, months. And coming out of that and now being in a place in my life where like I can't imagine feeling that way because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for me to be hopeless when I literally have God actively loving and caring about me and directing my life. And I have so many good people in my life who love and see me and care about me and support me. Like I can't get to that depth anymore. There's been like concrete poured over that level of the depth because I've healed to a place of belonging with myself and with others where I like know that I am valuable and belong in this world. And that's probably like the biggest thing that I've learned is that like when I'm able to love and trust and honor and respect myself, I'm able to do that with other people. And then there becomes this reciprocity of connection and care and love that like makes life worth living, honestly.
What kept you going in those dark moments?
Oof. I mean, my parents love me a lot. And I definitely a lot of times thought about how I'm really fortunate to have two really wonderful, loving parents who have always done their best to give me every opportunity and everything that I've ever needed and be there for me. And at the end of the day, like I couldn't do that to them when I didn't care about doing it to myself. My faith wasn't very strong at that time in my life. So I honestly can't even say that like God's love got me through it because I was not allowing myself to experience God's love. And, you know, I think just like there's an innate, I have a like belief that I am meant to do something great in this world. And that is not like from a place of hubris. It feels like a fact when I say it. My definition or my vision and understanding of what that greatness is has changed. I used to think that I was going to be a famous news anchor and then I was going to write it and I was going to write a book. I was like Katie Couric was like my idol, right? Like I thought I was going to like be a household name and then write a book and then go on a speaking tour and like have great impact that way. Nowadays, I kind of think great means that I'm going to be like a great wife and a great mom and a great neighbor and like someone that the people in my community can count on to show up and do what I say I'm going to do and be a woman of my word and also be an emotional safe place for people where like your kids can come to my house and you know they're good and that they're going to get fed and that they're going to be in a safe place. And you can come to my house and cry to me if you and your husband get in a fight. And I have the space internally and externally to like support the community. Like that I think is greatness to me. That's how I want to be great now, is just like have a house big enough and a fridge full enough and a heart that has the capacity to like love people really, really well. And I don't care if it's a neighborhood. I don't care if it's just my family. The scale no longer really matters to me because I think the scale is like attached to like a desire for like a certain amount of glory. And I don't really need that anymore as I've grown out of my like desire to be famous or whatever that was. For me, it's just being able to have more of like a one-on-one impact with people. And I think in my darkest moments, I like knew that I wasn't going to be able to do that if I didn't keep going. And I really think that that's a reality for me. So that kind of kept me of like, I think I believe enough in the potential of who I can be if I can figure out how to not be this version of myself. And I don't want to miss that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very noble pursuit to like to want impact without your name necessarily being attached to it.
Yeah. I
It's
don't
huge.
care for that. I used to care a lot, and now I'm more concerned with being an effective like vessel than being the star. And trust me, I like to get credit for my work. I like people to know my name. I like people to associate me with certain things. I'm not like, Mother Teresa over here. But I've learned that like that rarely helps and often hurts to have your hubris and pride attached to an outcome. I went on a walk with my friend recently, and she put a little nugget that like as soon as she said it, it like implanted itself and it hasn't left. And I've thought about it a lot. And it was like, you can either be attached to outcomes or you can be happy. Either or.
It's one or the other.
Yeah. And so I'm not really attached to the outcome of my impact. But I'm attached to the happiness that I get from behaving that way. And then whatever impact that has is like up to God.
What is something you are currently struggling with?
Oh my gosh. What is something that I'm currently struggling with? Wow, there's so many things that just popped into my mind, and I'm like, what do I want to talk about on a podcast? I am struggling with being single. Yeah. It's hard. So my first 2 years of recovery, I had a partner in some way, shape, or form. And it wasn't the same partner. I dated the same person for like most of 2023. And that was one of 2 people that I've ever like fully loved. The first one being the New York guy, the second one being this guy. And also a great relationship in a lot of ways, and also a really not good relationship in a lot of ways. But to answer the question, I'm struggling with being single, and I want to emphasize that I'm not struggling with it in that I'm resenting it. I'm struggling with it in that it is hard for me. But I like welcome the hard. It's the hurdle that I'm like trying to get over. I also like deeply desire partnership and to have a family, like kind of in the near to mid-term future. My 30th birthday is in less than a month, and women do have that thing that happens in our brains, and I know like there's kind of just like a discourse around it. Comedians make jokes about it, whatever. And to me, it's like there's not a sense of urgency. To me, anything that is urgent is not spiritual, but it is a desire. And I don't want to squash that desire because I don't have someone right in front of me right now that's like the guy. So how do I hold space for, I want to be single in this time. God clearly wants me to be single in this time. And there's a lot that I can only learn in navigating the things that are before me in life by myself. And I want that. I see that. That's been made clear to me. And cool, I'm on board. And I miss being held. I miss having someone texting me being like, how's your day? I miss waking up to good morning, beautiful. I miss having someone call me and just like wanting to hear me talk. I miss making food for someone. I miss someone making food for me. I miss laying down and being in someone's arms when I'm falling asleep or when I'm watching. Like all those things are great things that I like genuinely miss. And I think when I was talking before about like growth and discipline and all those things, like it's that I'm going to delay. Like I could probably go out and find that, but I know like deeply that I'm not supposed to right now. And it's hard because I have this human part of me that like just wants to be loved and wants to give and receive love. And then I have this higher self part of me that is like, whatever path I'm on, this section of the path only has room for one. I don't get a buddy shoulder to shoulder on this section of the path. And I have to just trust that there's purpose in that and keep putting one foot in front of the other until I get to the part of the path where it opens up and someone can walk up next to me. And I don't know if that's in 100 feet or 5 miles or 500 miles. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know that I want to both honor where I believe I'm at in my own personal growth journey right now, which is most effective single, and hold my heart open with the desire for partnership and love and a family and all those good things.
There's something that is so powerful about being okay with being single.
Yeah, totally.
There was one moment that like really, I don't know why, but it's just been ingrained in my memory. I was in college and I was going to the library where I worked, and I went into the bathroom, and I was single at this time. And for some reason, I just had the thought of like, I'm good right now. And I was single at the time. And that has been like such a great like callback in my life.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a relationship, it is not a good reason to stay in a relationship because you don't want to be single.
Oh, that's the worst.
That is the worst reason to be
in. You're dishonoring yourself and like simultaneously wasting the other person's time.
Yes. So taking that out of the question is like huge, and it makes you a better partner.
Yeah.
And it makes you able to make like hard decisions.
Totally. Ugh. I mean, hard decisions have been my specialty in this season, because when I clear the space, all the hard decisions come, and there's not anybody to turn to be like, hey babe, what do you think? Or, hey, let me just talk this to death with you and like get your, it's like, it's me. Mm-hmm. It's literally just me making all the decisions for my business, for my finances. Where am I going to live? What am I going to do today? Like, what am I going to eat? Like, all the decisions that you make. I mean, we make thousands of decisions in a day, right? I'm sure that's a Googleable statistic. And right now I'm making them pretty much all for myself, by myself, with myself. And most of the time I want it to not be that way, but the more I do it, the more I'm like, I'm kind of okay. And I don't know that I've had that moment where it's just hit me and I'm like, I'm okay. I like this. Cause I've only been single for like just shy of 6 months, which is not that long. Like I know that I have longer to go. And the reason I'm so certain of it is because I met someone not too long ago that I like really like. I'm going to leave it at that. And I think we could be really great for each other. And we simultaneously, I mean, he led the decision to be like, not now. Not no, but not now. And that, of course, puts the risk of like, and maybe never, right? Not now means things are going to change. Variables are going to change. And this may not line up again. But the determination that we made was that this doesn't work right now. And he led that decision. I would have made a different decision. But it was cool because his decision to choose himself over the potential of an us empowered me to make the decision to choose myself. And it was almost this little test, which I don't believe that my higher power tests me, and that like there's this like manipulative carrot dangling kind of God that's like, oops, you're going to fall into the hole. Like, that's not the God that I have a relationship with. But I do think there are moments where as you are like growing and changing and developing, you're going to run into situations where what the past version of you would have done is one choice, and what the future version of you is going to do is another choice. And the one you've done more is going to feel more comfortable. And the one you haven't done is going to feel uncomfortable. And that's why for me, like being uncomfortable is like a barometer for success for me. If I'm not uncomfortable often, then I'm probably not growing. So it was really uncomfortable to sit across from this person that I'm physically attracted to. And I like the way their brain works. And I like the things that they're doing in their life. And like all of this stuff. And I was like, this could work. And he's like, yeah, this could work. And right now I need to focus on my thing and you need to focus on your thing. And let's do that instead and make a different choice than we've both made in the past instead of get caught up in what this could be. And I was just like, dang, I'm so bummed, but respect. And then I get the opportunity to continue to choose myself. And when we were walking away from that conversation, it was really cute. It was kind of like a movie where we like hugged and walked away. And then we both looked back at the same time, and he like kind of waved, and I just like smiled. And then I got in my car and I was like, I literally got in my car and was like, good job. Like, we did good. And then I just said, God, your will and not mine. Like, if that's my person, he'll come back at the right time. And if it's not my person, like, thank God we didn't go on more than one date and get super involved and like distract each other while we're both like trying to do our stuff. And so for me, it was this reminder that like, yeah, I'm supposed to be single in this season. Whatever is, I've got a lot of things going on right now. I've got 2 businesses. I've got full circle events. I'm hiking Kilimanjaro. I'm turning 30. I'm moving into my own place for the first time. Like, that's enough, you know? And I get to focus on all of that with just me and God. And it really, that experience with that person helped me to double down on choosing myself. And I think I'm going to have that moment like you did when you walked into the library, probably when I like move into my own place and I like sit down and I'm like, I'm okay. I'm happy. Like, this is my place. I think it's going to be a really cool time for me.
What does your dream life look like?
Oh my gosh, my dream life. I don't know. I'm not attached to a certain thing, but I know that it involves a family, dogs, growing the majority of the food that I eat, and flowers. So I picture like at least 10 acres and online business and mycelium-like ecosystem network of friends and family. Kind of back to the village thing that I was talking about at the beginning, like having a community and a network and friends that exchange their goods and services and we all take care of each other. And that I imagine myself working probably remotely, and having optimized to the level where I only have to work for a couple hours a day and I make well into 6 figures. I think that's just like a when, not if thing. It's just like figuring out how to do that. But it's like highly accessible. It's just figuring out my path to it. And yeah, I want to live on some land and I want to spend a lot of time with my hands in the dirt and I want to grow flowers. So right now I have a floral design business called Maracata Floral, where I focus on events and editorial photo shoots. And I like to consider my point of differentiation, that I'm like a sculpture with florals as my medium. So I'm not like I don't do weddings specifically because I don't want that scale to water down the like creative process and the artistic nature of it. So I think my dream life involves like potentially growing flowers and being able to wholesale them and then have my little like backyard studio and take on the projects that I want to take on after having built up this floral design career over years, and then having my babies like run around in the garden and like going over to where like vegetables and herbs and all kinds of things are growing and coming in and like making food with that for my family. And I think just having a family that actively loves each other over time and spends time together is like the core of my dream life. And I do want to be able to travel. I want my kids to have stamps in their passport. And that's important to me to make sure that they like see other things besides like suburban American culture in their childhood, because that's like all I saw. And when I went to Spain when I was 20 years old, I was like, whoa, there's a whole world out here. No one told me. And it was so eye-opening, and I'd like my kids' eyes to open a little earlier. And yeah, I think it's a lot of just, time outside with family and friends and sharing reciprocal relationships with sharing resources where I feel helped and I feel helpful to the people that are in my life. Yeah.
All right, Dani Smith.
Cool.
Thank you for this conversation. I really enjoyed this. Where can people find out more about you? I
think the best way to reach me is probably Instagram. My Instagram handle is partydanimal, which is very fitting, speaking of branding. So it's party2_danimal. And then like everything I do is in my bio. So I have Bold Strategy, which is my brand strategy and marketing consulting business. I have Maracata Floral. I have Full Circle Events. And I just like to play outside and be a good human and help others to laugh and live life to the full. So if you want to do that, hit me up.
Awesome. Bye,
Cool.
everybody.
Thanks.